So this is Sas, a guy whose entire life goal is just one thing, to die peacefully. But one day, when he finally gives up on his life and tries to make that happen, he suddenly gets seeded into a magical world where he absolutely should not be, because all he's got is level 1 stats. Out of every single person who's ever been summoned to this world, Sas is officially the weakest of the bunch, and he doesn't even have a special skill. So naturally, everyone assumes Sas must have been some kind of clerical error. But he actually has one hidden ability, and the moment it gets revealed, it gets him noticed by literally the Demon Lord himself. Sas, fed up with his life, decides to leave this world behind together with his girlfriend Sachin. They tie themselves together with a red string so they can stay together forever in the afterlife. It looks like the two of them are about to jump into a fast-flowing river and end it all, but before they can, in comes a truck on, hits both of them, and finishes the job right there. And so, we're told, ends the story of a writer and his lover. Cut to Sas, whose eyes now open in what looks like a church. He assumes this must be where people go after death. But a lady walks up and tells him nope, this isn't heaven or hell. This lady's name is Andy, and her job is to guide people who arrive from other worlds. Andy explains that this world is completely different from his. Humans live here alongside all kinds of beasts, monsters, and demons. You've been teleported here to help the people of this world and protect it from coming threats. Which basically means Sas, who just wanted to peacefully die with his girlfriend, is now stuck in an entirely different world. While Andy's still explaining more about the world, Sas casually pops a handful of poison pills, hoping to die again right then and there. Andy quickly heals him with magic. You don't need to do all this. I don't want to live anyway. Andy tells him he can't do that and he's been sent here specifically to save this world. Sas says he couldn't care less about this world, and reaches for the poison pills again. Andy explains he's been chosen and needs to accept it. Sas asks, chosen by who exactly? I just wanted to die peacefully. Andy explains he was sent here by one of their secret agents, Truckun, who only goes after people who are deeply struggling with their lives and kills them to give them a fresh start. Hearing this makes Sas furious, because it was this very Truckun that separated him from his girlfriend. He immediately lights a cigarette and sits there smoking, trying to kill himself as fast as possible by other means. Andy now tries checking Sas's stats to see how powerful he is, since every summoned person usually has some kind of unique power. But when she checks his stats, nothing. His level is just 1. Out of every adventurer who's ever come to this world, Sas is the weakest by far. Even Andy is stunned, and starts wondering if maybe Truckun screwed up this time. Getting bored sitting around, Sas decides to just walk outside. Andy tries to stop him. Don't do this, you're incredibly weak, you won't survive out there, but he doesn't care at all. Don't worry about me. First thing I'll do out there is find a nice spot to die in. Andy says, at least pick a profession for yourself before you go. What will you even do in this world? What's there to pick? I've always been a writer. And with that, Sas just walks off. Andy is completely baffled by him. She's never met anyone like this. Every single person who's ever arrived from another world came with some kind of special power. But Sas is nothing like the rest. And maybe, just maybe, Andy's been waiting years for someone exactly like him to show up. Meanwhile, outside, Sas is popping those poison pills like they're candy. Suddenly a girl's voice comes from above. She's being crushed by a tree-shaped monster and calling out for help. But instead of helping, Sas just stands there, watching her scream, and says, what of you? Dying women look so beautiful. Are you insane? Just help me already. So Sas pretends to try and save her. Sorry, my hands just can't quite reach, and at that exact moment, the monster grabs him too, and now both of them are dangling together. The girl gets furious. Why did you just get grabbed too? You were supposed to save me. She explains that these tree monsters can drain life force, and within moments they'll both be dead. But of course, Sas doesn't mind one bit. Technically this fulfills his wish to die. The monster starts slowly draining both their life force, and the girl assumes Sas has already kicked the bucket. But his body was already packed full of poison from those pills, and the moment the monster absorbs it, the poison spreads right back into the tree monster instead, and Sas, very much against his will, survives. The monster dies from the poison on the spot. An automatic system voice announces that Sas defeated the tree monster with poison damage, and his level has jumped from 1 straight to 3. The girl is thrilled that Sas beat the monster. Sas, meanwhile, is devastated. He's now attempted to die 5 times and failed every single time. Truly, the luck of an RCB fan. The girl thanks him for saving her life and invites him to her town as a thank you. But right then, his eyes land on the red string tied to him by his lover, Sachin. He thinks if I got teleported here, then surely Sachin did too. And just like that, Sass finds a new reason to live, find his girlfriend Sachin and finish what they started together. Meanwhile, back at the church, Andy is praying to God, hoping she gets to see Sass again someday. And right on cue, Sass walks in from behind her. Andy lights up with joy until she notices the girl standing next to him, and her happiness immediately deflates. She assumes Sass is already gone and gotten himself a girlfriend. "It's nothing like that," he says. "Actually, I'm looking for a girl named Sach. Would you help me find her?" Andy practically loses it internally. Another girl. How many lovers does this man have? A little later, the 3 of them head out, with Andy now joining Sass's journey too. As the girl gets close to him, Andy snaps at her, "You can't just go around holding some man's hand like that. Don't cling to him so much." The girl clocks immediately what's going on and asks, "Do you like Sass?" Andy, flustered, denies it. "No, nothing like that. I just came along because Sass is from another world and he's really weak. Weak. No way, this guy literally just killed a tree monster to save my life." Andy is shocked and honestly a bit sad hearing this. Sass saved another girl, and she can't help but wish it had been her instead. Meanwhile, Sass digs up a coffin from some junk pile perfect for him. Obviously, he tells Tama and Andy, "I'm going to sleep. You to figure things out." The girl gets annoyed. "My name isn't Tama." Got it. But the 2 of them decide that's her name anyway, and it sticks. Hours later, evening has fallen as they keep walking. Tama and Andy spend the whole trip dragging the coffin, with Sass lying inside it and eventually, exhausted and furious, snap at him, "Why aren't you coming out already? Did you put Mendy on your feet or something? Why won't you walk?" Sass gives no response. Tama starts wondering if maybe he actually did die in there. Finally, after hours of walking, the 3 of them reach a city. Sass looks around and says, "This place isn't so bad. It's actually a pretty beautiful world." They head to the palace to meet the king, who has a young daughter. Andy, Charlotte, tells the king that Sass is from another world and is an adventurer. The king is thrilled and offers them a place to stay, since he really wants to hear Sass's adventure stories, which he apparently loves. So poor Sass has to improvise. His entire adventure so far has been lying in a coffin. "Fine," he tells the king, "let me tell you what it's like to lie in a coffin." The king's face just breaks. What kind of adventure is this? To smooth things over, Andy asks the king about Charlotte. "Actually, I did want your opinion on something," the king says. "I want to marry off Charlotte, and there are 2 candidates for her hand." He can't decide between the 2, and honestly, Charlotte's just as confused. So the king asks all 3 of them for advice. Sass says, "What kind of father are you? You should be asking your own daughter, not some random adventurer like me," and just walks off. Tama and Andy panic, worried the king will be offended, and quickly apologize on Sass's behalf. That night, everyone's asleep except Sass, who's wide awake. When Andy asks why, he says, "I never sleep peacefully. That's exactly why I want to die as quickly and quietly as possible." Just then, Andy notices Tama's tail curled up, sleeping in Sass's lap, and immediately suspects Tama's got ulterior motives. The 2 of them start bickering. Fed up with the noise, Sass steps outside, where he finds Charlotte on the balcony, looking out at the night view. He joins her. "This river looks so beautiful in the darkness, doesn't it? Honestly makes me want to jump in and end it all." Sass then asks Charlotte for her opinion on who she wants to marry. She's still torn between the 2 of Gomez, a brave warrior, and Otto, her childhood friend whose music makes her feel good. She's genuinely unsure who to pick. "Look, it's sweet that you're worried about your father," Sass says, "but I don't think you should be taking advice from other people for this decision. It's your life. It's up to you how you want to live it." And he walks off. The next morning, the king calls all 3 of them and announces Charlotte has made her decision on who she'll marry. "You all should come see this." Charlotte steps forward and, choosing Sass as her husband, declares, "I want to spend the rest of my life with him." And yes, the same background music from last night was playing again. Gomez isn't Charlotte's pick because, quote, his body smells terrible. The king is furious at Charlotte's decision, but by now she's thoroughly motivated by Sass's words, and fires right back at her father. It's my life, my choice. Hearing all this nonsense, Gomez angrily rips off his mask, revealing he's actually a servant of the Dark Lord, planning to marry Charlotte, seize control of the kingdom, and gift it to his master. But now that plan's ruined, and he snaps, none of you are walking out of here alive. You'll all die right in front of each other. He goes on a full rampage, wrecking everything and slaughtering guards. Honestly, a servant seems like an understatement here. Tama tries to fight back, but can't land so much as a scratch on Gomez, and Otto, who's basically useless in a fight, since all he can do is play music and does exactly that, yes. Even in a full-blown massacre, the man just starts playing music. Sass steps up and politely requests, "Excuse me, could you kill the two of us first?" Grabbing Charlotte's hand. "Fine, once I'm done with you two, I'll hand the kingdom over to your father's remains." "Look, none of that matters to me. Do whatever you want, just kill me first." And because Charlotte chose to marry Sass, that technically means she now lives and dies with her husband. But just as Gomez lunges to kill them both, Charlotte realizes she made a huge mistake. If she dies, there's no one left to run the kingdom. Sass notices her crying and understands her feelings, and in that final moment, pushes her away from himself. But before Gomez can land the killing blow, Andy conjures a shield so powerful it actually breaks off Gomez's horns. Seizing the moment, Tama unleashes her final attack, sending Gomez flying straight through a wall and into the river. The king finally realizes his own mistakes. Instead of finding Charlotte a new husband, he hands the throne to her directly. And just like that, Charlotte goes from princess to queen. After this, Andy and Tama leave the town, once again dragging Sass in his coffin the whole way, though this time, Sass decides he wants to see some scenery, so he sits up in the coffin. Still sitting inside the coffin, mind you. After dragging him a good while longer, they end up in the mountains, where their levels finally get shown. Tama's level is 15 with 3 dangerous skills. Andy's level is 19, mainly with healing magic. And Sass's level is a grand total of 3, with 0 skills plus his entire body's still full of poison. Andy decides they'll first head to a city called Groom, which also happens to be Tama's hometown. But before that, she wants to stop by Jordan Temple for a while, one of her temples or churches, if you prefer, where people from other worlds tend to show up. Tama asks Andy, "Didn't you quit your job to go traveling with Sass? Will they even let you back in?" Andy says, "Don't worry, I already sent my resignation through an acquaintance." But when they look over, said acquaintance turns out to be sitting on top of Sass, busy sucking his blood. When Andy yells at it, it pulls the resignation letter, which it never actually delivered, out of its own mouth. Sass takes an instant liking to this weird little creature and names it Mellows, then goes right back to sleep in his coffin. Before they can move on, a massive dragon appears over the mountains, blocking their path, and then a girl speaks to it in some secret language, calming it down instantly. Tama and Andy are shocked that she tamed the world's most powerful dragon so easily, and ask who she even is. "You probably don't realize it, but right now, only my monsters roam this area. You should leave, quickly." Spotting the coffin they're dragging behind them, she assumes someone's already died. Sass pops out of the coffin. "I think you've misunderstood. I was just taking a little rest." Andy says, "Please forgive him. He's a bit strange. He's from another world." The moment she hears another world, the girl's expression turns to pure rage, as if people from other worlds are her sworn enemies, and she attacks all 3 of them without warning. Andy tries to stop her, but it's completely useless, because this girl is insanely powerful. You'll find out who she is soon enough. Her aura alone is so overwhelming that neither of them can even stand, and there's a mark of the Dark Lord on her chest. Sass steps forward on his own toward her, since her hostility is specifically toward people from other worlds, and tells her, "You can do whatever you want with me." The girl doesn't waste a single second as she plunges her hand straight through Sass. "Remember my name, Wardelia. And your game ends here." Andy and Tama, already half collapsed, pass out entirely at the sight of Sass bleeding this much. Wardelia is about to leave when Sass stands right back up and steps in front of her again. "I used to hate someone this much too. I get it, you probably have your own reasons for taking your anger out on me." Watching him say this calmly, even after all that blood loss, genuinely unnerves Wardelia. She quickly mounts her dragon and flees. And Sass collapses right there. Mellows, watching everything from behind a rock, quickly carries all three of them into the temple on a flying carpet to save them. The priest here is a friend of Auntie's named Isha, who heals everyone up. A few hours later, Sass buys a bottle of poison apparently excellent for killing monsters. The shopkeeper naturally assumes Sass is buying it to use on monsters. Instead, Sass just starts chugging the whole bottle himself, hoping to die faster. Who knows when this poor man's death wish is finally going to come true. Meanwhile, Isha sits with Auntie, annoyed at her for quitting her job over some guy from another world. Isha firmly believes people like that are never decent, always cocky about their power and misusing it. Right then, a rapper named Kotaru shows up, trying to impress them by flexing his unlimited money skill. Isha instead humiliates him and chases him off. See, I told you every single one of them from another world is exactly the same. But Auntie corrects her, no, Sass is different. He might not have any skills, but he still saved us from the Dark Lord's forces. Isha is stunned. How is that even possible? The Dark Lord was already defeated 7 days ago by heroes from another world. We then see a massive dragon under the control of these same heroes, one of whom is now sitting on the Dark Lord's throne. No matter how hard you try, your master's never coming back. Meanwhile, outside on the cliffs, Wardelia stares at the Dark Lord's castle because he was actually her father. Wardelia is the Dark Lord's only daughter, and now her father's castle has been seized by people from another world. Meanwhile, Andy and Tama can't figure out how there's still a girl this powerful running around if the Dark Lord's already dead, or what Sass's arrival even means in all this. It all feels a bit strange, but for now, they set the mystery aside because they want to go shopping. So they stuff Sass into a giant suit of armor, so he doesn't get himself into more trouble. Honestly, you could fit for Sasses in this thing comfortably. Cut to the town, where a group riding wolves rolls in, and their leader, Suzuki, announces to everyone that there's no more danger, the Dark Lord is dead, and they can all live in peace now. Everyone celebrates, finally free. Good, you're all happy. Now let's talk business. We, the people from another world, risked our lives to save your world, so it's only fair you repay that debt. So from now on, this town belongs to them, and Kotaru announces that Lord Suzuki now rules this town. Everyone's stunned, wondering what on earth is happening. Right then, Kotaru spots Auntie and Isha and tells Suzuki, "These two humiliated me earlier." Suzuki doesn't take kindly to a hero from another world being disrespected, and as punishment places his hand on Auntie's head, instantly making her his pet, thanks to his skill for turning anyone into a pet. Tama gets furious at what Suzuki did to Auntie and tries to attack him, only for Suzuki to make her his pet too. Isha steps forward, telling him to stop or things won't end well for him. In response, Suzuki unleashes all his pet monsters across the town to instill fear, and chaos erupts everywhere. Houses catch fire, people run in every direction. Sorry, but I'll be using your church as my new castle from now on. Even Tama, now under Suzuki's control, starts attacking Sass's body armor, trying to get him out. But when the armor breaks, the helmet falls straight onto her head, and she's knocked out cold. Sass locks her up in a box to keep her safe. A little later, Sass finds Isha and learns that Suzuki wasn't always like this when he first arrived in this world. He was incredibly weak. Sass, fascinated by people like this, writes it all down in his notebook and tells Isha, "I'm heading to the church to meet Suzuki." Isha comes along. They reach the church gate. "I'm telling you again, you shouldn't go in there without a plan." Sass pulls out his poison bottle. Isha assumes, okay, at least he's got some kind of plan. But no, Sass pulled it out purely for himself to drink. And Isha is left staring in horror as he just walks right through the gate. Sass walks up to Suzuki and tells him, "I'm really interested in your story. I want to write a novel about you." "Oh really? Finally, someone wants to write about my heroics." "No, actually, I want to write about a man whose own power made him blind." Furious, Suzuki sends his beasts to attack. Isha jumps in and starts taking them down one by one, while Sass, a guy who's supposed to be endangered, is just calmly writing his novel in the middle of the fight. Isha can't hold off everyone forever, and Suzuki seizes the opportunity to launch a magic attack. But before it lands, Mellows jumps in front of it, absorbing the hit because Mellows is still wearing that same helmet Sass wore earlier, which happens to deflect magic attacks. Kotaru's jaw drops, since they've now got no wolves left. But Suzuki still had one wolf in reserve, and summons his strongest one, which immediately bites down hard on Sass's shoulder. But since Sass's whole body is basically pure poison at this point, the wolf drops dead too. Game over. Both of them freak out. What do we do now? And Kotaro flees the scene. Cornered, Suzuki summons his final weapon Andy and orders her to attack Isha. But Isha refuses to fight her own friend, so Sass steps between them to try and talk Andy down instead. Are you an idiot? Do you think you can talk my pit out of this with words? Sass starts talking to Andy and, exactly as he predicted, no matter how hard she tries, she just can't bring herself to hurt him. Furious at this, Suzuki forcibly orders her to kill Sass anyway. But instead, Andy turns the attack on herself, breaking Suzuki's control over her in the process. Suzuki can't believe his eyes that Sass managed to break such a dangerous skill just with words. Unable to handle this level of humiliation, Suzuki grabs a knife, about to end his own life, but Sass stops him just in time. Hold on, my novel isn't finished yet. You can't do that. And he asks Suzuki to tell him his full story. Cut to Suzuki's past, where he's constantly bullied at school, treated like everyone's personal pet. He'd thought about dying many times but never had the courage. Then one night, truck hit him, and the next thing he knew, he woke up in front of Isha. Suzuki got the skill to turn anyone into his pet, which, honestly, is a pretty great skill. But even with it, the townspeople never treated him well. He kept trying to improve himself, but no one ever respected him, and someone who's endured that much would rather become the villain than the hero. After hearing the whole story, Sass says, "All right, my novel's finally done." This is the story of a broken man who was given a chance to be a hero in this world, but because of his own weakness, he couldn't become either a hero or a villain. Sass titles the novel No Longer Allowed in Another World, which, coincidentally, is also the title of this anime. Suddenly, a bright light bursts out of the book, and all its pages swirl around and surround Suzuki entirely. A teleportation circle appears out of nowhere, and right before their eyes, Suzuki vanishes from the spot. Isha and Andy are stunned. They've never seen anything like this before, because Sass somehow just sent Suzuki straight back to his own world. His stats now show new skill, writing. Maybe this is exactly why Sass was summoned to this world, to send troublesome people from other worlds back home. Since Suzuki's gone now, his pack of wolves leaves the town too, and Tama returns to normal. Isha also realizes she was completely wrong about Sass, and tells Andy, "You should stay with him from now on. Bigger dangers are still coming your way." Meanwhile, back in his own world, Suzuki wants a fresh start to his life, so he takes a job at a supermarket. So really, sending him back was the right call. Cut to the third and biggest church, where Isha arrives and finds another priest, Wolf, who's a complete drunk, absolutely wasted on the floor. Another priest, Ark, shows up too. His job is basically the same as Andy and Isha's. Their senior arrives, seats them all, and a meeting's about to begin. But first, another priest walks in, Arya, who's replacing Andy. After some small talk, Milan tells them all, "I needed to discuss something about people from other worlds." Apparently, they now want to shut down the teleportation that brings people from other worlds here. Because the Dark Lord's already defeated, but his place has just been taken by heroes from another world, who honestly aren't much better, since they're just as bad as the Dark Lord himself. Isha tells everyone about Sass, someone who's from another world too, but has the power to send other troublesome adventurers back home. No one quite believes such powers could really exist. As they're discussing this, their leader, Pop, walks in, wanting to learn more about Sass because who knows, maybe he's their last hope. Meanwhile, Andy and Tama are once again dragging Sass's coffin for hours until they reach a new town. A boy named Near sitting there tells them, "Need help? Tell me if for the right price, I can get you a powerful warrior who'll be a big help on your journey." Tama likes the idea, since it means she won't have to drag the coffin anymore. Without a second thought, Andy hands Near 400 zeri, the local currency. Near takes the money and says, "Wait here a bit, I'll go get him." That night, while resting and waiting for Near, the receptionist tells them, "Sweetie, you've been scammed. That boy scams everyone this way, and he's practically dying inside." Having just handed over 400 zeri, turns out, Near is an orphan boy who survives by running scams. No one ever taught him right from wrong. We then see Near getting kidnapped by some men, who steal everything he has. Near has no idea who these people are, but hopes some hero from another world will save him. Instead, he learns these very kidnappers are also from another world, and now, to keep Near from spilling their secret, they decide to kill him. Just as one of them raises his special weapon to attack, Sass steps in and deflects it. They wonder who this random guy even is and try to kill Sass instead. But true to form, Sass as always is completely ready to die and tells them, "Please, aim your arrow straight at my heart." Terrified by this, the attackers all run away instantly. Genuinely, think about it, if someone standing in front of you saying shoot the arrow right at my heart, you'd hesitate too. It's honestly the scariest thing you could say to an attacker. There's no character quite like Sass in any other enemy encounter ever. Cut to the next morning. Andy and Tama have no idea what happened to Nier the night before, and Sass was also nowhere to be found. Andy starts wondering if Sass secretly went off to meet other girls and gets furious. Right then, Nier shows up from behind. Tama yells at him, "Why did you scam us? Give us our money back." "No, I wasn't lying, you needed a brave warrior to help you, and now I'll travel with you myself." And with that, Nier officially joins Sass's party. The next day, after walking a while, Tama hands Nier the coffin rope to pull instead. He struggles hard, barely managing to budge the coffin even a little. After hours of travel, they spot Tama's hometown in the distance. But just as the four of them arrive, soldiers surround and arrest all of them, dragging everyone off to jail, except Tama, who they take separately. This makes Nier assume Tama must be some kind of runaway thief. That's clearly why she's being taken away. They need to escape, so Nier uses his sleight of hand to pick the lock in seconds. And he says, "Well, we didn't know we had such a skilled thief with us." But even that goes to waste, because soldiers catch them again right away. All three are brought before King Siberian, who tells them they've been captured because they kidnapped his daughter, and now face the death penalty. Everyone except Sass absolutely freaks out. Then Tama arrives, dressed as a princess, her real name being Matilda. She explains to her father that these three are her friends and she'd set off on a journey with them. The king, understanding, agrees to let them all go, but on one condition: Tama must now live in her hometown as a proper princess. She has to accept her father's condition. "I'm sorry, I can't come with you anymore." That night, the three of them are eating at a local restaurant when a waitress asks if they're really friends of Princess Matilda. Turns out, this lady's name is Foam, who used to work for Princess Matilda, that is Tama. Sass gets really interested in Tama's story now, given how the first time he met her, she was about to be eaten by a monster, and now it turns out she's actually a princess trapped in her own town. Because of her father, Sass asks the waitress to tell him everything she knows about Tama. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Tama sits in her room when she notices someone standing outside, a man named K-Bar. The moment he appears, the king rushes in with his soldiers and demands, "Who are you, and why are you here?" K-Bara, sitting himself down on the king's throne, casually introduces himself, "I'm one of the 7 people from another world who defeated the Dark Lord. People also lovingly call me the fallen angel of gluttony." In truth, K-Bara is here to seize control of the kingdom and also wants to eat a demi-human. And by demi-human, he means Princess Matilda Tama. The king sends his soldiers to kill him, but K-Bara devours them all in one blink with his skill. Left with no choice, the king himself steps forward to fight and unleashes his most powerful attack, Cat Palm. But K-Bar just stands there, completely unaffected. A shield-like layer had already formed over his stomach. Enraged, the king decides not just to capture but kill K-Bar, charging forward with his strongest attack. "You came into my own palace and killed my people. Even if you beg now, you're not walking out of here alive." K-Bar readies himself, and just as one of them is about to strike, Tama shows up, wanting to help her father fight K-Bar. But the king tells her to stay away so you can never take Lin's place. Meanwhile, we learn from Foam that Tama once had a twin brother named Lin. But 10 years ago, during a terrible storm, both Prince Lin and the queen passed away. Since then, the king's been consumed by grief. So Tama cut her own hair short for her father's sake, learning martial arts in hopes of becoming a warrior worthy of the throne in his eyes. But the king never once put his trust in her. Back to the present fight, the king is still telling Tama to stay away, but she refuses and charges at K-Bar herself to prove herself. Just as K-Bar is about to eat her, the king jumps in to shove her aside and save her, losing his own arm in the process, which K-Bar promptly eats. "Sorry, princess. I was going to taste you, but your father got in the way." Unable to control herself after seeing this, Tama rushes to attack K-Bar, but the royal guard, Ryard, quickly grabs her and pulls her out. He brings her back to Auntie and the others, explaining that someone from another world suddenly attacked the palace, and the king is currently his hostage. Meanwhile, Kabara drags the king out in front of the kingdom's people and announces, "I'm your king now, and every day I'll need the women of this town to eat. Anyone who dares raise their voice against me won't survive either." Despite the warning, one man tries to be a hero and speaks out, and Kabara devours him instantly in front of everyone. Panic spreads everywhere as people flee in all directions, but it's useless, because Kabara's monsters have already surrounded them from every side. Tama regains consciousness and rushes to save her father, but Briard stops her, since she can't win alone. Auntie reminds her that after your brother and mother are gone, you're the king's last hope. You need to stay here. Sass then heads toward Kabara's guards with Nira and Auntie, telling them, "This is my wish, I want King Kabara to eat me. It would make me very happy." The two guard monsters are genuinely shocked. This guy's practically begging to be food. The three of them are locked in a waiting room until Kabara gives further orders. Meanwhile, Briar brings food for Tama, only to find she's already escaped. Kabara, meanwhile, sitting in the palace, is starving, wondering which demi-human to eat next. His guard tells him about Sass, who apparently wants to become his meal himself. Before he can issue any new orders, though, Tama bursts in and takes both guards out. The king tells her to stay away, but Tama's determined to prove herself no matter what. She keeps attacking Kabara repeatedly, but can't stand a chance against his strength, and here we learn that Kabara absorbs the powers of whoever's body he eats. Since he ate the king's arm, he now has access to the king's powers too. Meanwhile, bored sitting in the jail cell, Sass wanders around the palace and eventually stumbles into the queen's room. Poking around, his eyes land on a drawer. And since he can't open it himself, he gets near to pick the lock, and inside is a very old notebook. Meanwhile, Kabara, using the king's stolen power, relentlessly attacks Tama, beating her badly within minutes. "You should have just listened to your father. Your martial arts are completely useless." That's when Tama remembers her brother Lin, who used to practice martial arts in the forest every day, hoping to one day become capable of running the kingdom and being as strong as their father. Recalling this, Tama stands back up, which only excites Kabara more, impressed by her unwillingness to give up. Impressed, he decides to share his own past, how he came from a rich family, always had endless food of every kind. But slowly, normal food began to bore him, so he decided to try something new and killed his own maid to eat her. Except he couldn't actually go through with it, and one day, while walking down the street, randomly furious, he beat up a random man. That's when Truck-kun suddenly showed up to say hello to him, and that's how Kabara ended up in this world. Now, he can eat literally anything he wants. Right after finishing his story, just as Kabara is about to eat Tama, Sass finally shows up. Our man's finally here." And Sass says, "Bro, your story's genuinely terrible. My ears are bleeding just listening to it." Kabara doesn't even understand where this guy came from, and tries to eat him too but can't, because his instincts refuse to let him consume someone this depressed. Right then, Andy and Nir arrive from behind, threatening Kabara, "If you don't stop, Sass will send you back to your own world." But Sass, being Sass, says, "No, I'm not wasting my novel on a story this bad." And able to handle this level of humiliation, Kabara goes full rage mode. "You people clearly have no idea what I'm capable of. None of you are leaving here alive." This time, Sass has already written Tama's story, and gives her the novel to open, and just like last time, exactly the same thing happens, and he can't believe it. Sass's power apparently works on people from this world too, not just those from another world. Sass then explains Tama's story out loud. "You're the princess who tried to become her father's last hope after losing her brother and mother, but he never once understood you. So now it's up to you. Do you want to be a good princess in your father's eyes? Or take your brother's place and run this kingdom yourself?" At that, a mark of the divine beast crush begins glowing on Tama's hands, a mark she's had since childhood. Lin knew about it, but Tama never wanted her father to find out, in truth, though. The king had always known about it too. Since her childhood, he simply never taught her how to use it, and now he deeply regrets that. Tama is now fully ready to fight. Kabara thinks whatever she does, she can't touch me, but this time, it's different. Using cat distraction, Tama throws his attention off, then, using her divine crush ability, tears straight through Kabara, killing him instantly, all the built-up energy on Tama's hands. dissipates, and she collapses, unconscious. Meanwhile, Sass returns to the king and gives him back the notebook from the queen's room. The king asks, "Why did you even go into the queen's room without permission?" "Yeah, I made a mistake. And I'll happily accept execution for this crime." The king says, "No, I'm not doing that." Right then, Briard rushes in to tell the king that Princess Matilda's power has now faded, but the power she used was still incomplete, meaning she hadn't even used it to its full potential. Maybe she simply couldn't. As they're discussing this, Kabara suddenly comes back to life. Even he can't understand how until he remembers eating pieces of the Dark Lord's body after his defeat, which means he now carries a fragment of the Dark Lord's power, which he used to revive himself. Kabara is thrilled, thinking now no one can kill him, and fully transforms into a demon. But before he can act, Wardelia, the Dark Lord's daughter, appears from behind and slices his head clean off. She'd come here specifically hunting for Kabara. But even decapitated, he's still laughing and tells her, "Your father's body was pretty tasty. I really tore him apart." Furious, Wardelia finishes him off for good this time. Sass walks up and asks, "So, are you happy now, killing one of your father's murderers?" But since Wardelia hates people from other worlds, she threatens Sass before leaving, "If you try to come near me again, I'll kill you too." Sass, of course, is now intensely curious about her story too, and starts thinking about writing a novel about her as well. The next morning, as everyone's leaving that place, Tama doesn't join them, since she now wants to stay and fulfill her duty of running the kingdom. But the king comes to her and says, "Don't waste your life for me. Running this kingdom is my job." They probably haven't gone too far. Overjoyed, Tama rushes off to find the three of them. Meanwhile, poor Nir is alone, dragging Sass's coffin, moving painfully slowly. Sass pops out to stop him. "What's wrong? Did you put Mendy on your feet? Why are you crawling like a tortoise?" Furious, Nir thinks, "This guy is literally lounging in a coffin and lecturing me on speed." Right then, Tama catches up to them, and once again, all four of them are traveling together. After hours of walking, they arrive at a new town, home to a massive tree, thousands of years old, which the locals call the World Tree, supposedly a very beautiful place. But the moment they enter the town, they're greeted by a giant casino, and the whole place is packed with gamblers and drunks. Everyone's stunned. This place is nothing like they expected. An old man from the town explains that it used to be quiet and beautiful, until some gamblers built this huge casino and got everyone hooked. Since then, gamblers keep flocking in from everywhere. And on top of everything, the World Tree's leaves are drying up, if nothing's done soon. The tree itself won't survive. For now, though, Sass doesn't care about any of this. His poison pills have run out. Just then, another person from another world walks up, and like Kabara types. This one actually feels sad about the town's condition and wants to somehow fix things. Meanwhile, Sass approaches some drunks, asking for something strong enough to at least destroy his kidneys. A lady walks up behind him and says, "If you want a taste of heaven, come with me." She takes Sass to her bar, gives him drinks, and even dances to entertain him. Meanwhile, Andy's basically crying an ocean of tears missing him. Eventually, the same lady drags a fully drunk Sass back to the group and leaves him with them. The old man explains that this lady's behavior isn't great. She has a habit of getting people drunk and controlling them. Years ago, when the casino owner built the casino, he opened his own bar right next door. The next day, Sass quietly heads back toward the ladies' bar early in the morning. Andy tries to stop him, but Yamada tells her there's no point as Sass is fully under this lady's spell now. At the bar, we learn her name is Ash. Sass thanks her for getting him so wasted the night before and asks if she has anything that'll send him straight to heaven. While chatting, Ash tells Sass that locals believe the World Tree House is a spirit that's kept the tree alive all this time, and what that means, he'll understand shortly. Right then, the casino owner shows up with some of his goons to see Ash, discussing their business, how to get more people addicted to gambling and drinking. Ash reminds him of their deal. "You said you wouldn't do this anymore." Turns out, Ash had been taking hefty payments from the casino boss to keep townspeople away from the casino. But his greed has grown, and now he wants to squeeze profit out of customers directly. He orders his lackey, Cebu, to bring townspeople to the casino, and Ash tries to stop him. This town will be completely ruined otherwise. But when they step outside, they find Yamada's already destroyed the casino. The casino's people rush out to fight, but Yamada's on a whole different level, wiping the floor with everyone with barely any effort. Panicking, the casino owner and his goons flee the town for good. Everyone's overjoyed, a problem that's plagued them for years, solved in a single day by Yamada. Ash thanks him for helping the town. But even after this, the townspeople still assume Ash was secretly in league with the casino owner, and start trash-talking her even in front of Yamada. Sass steps in and snaps. "You blind sheep," one person says something, and you believe it instantly. "If Ash hadn't been here, you'd all still be passed out drunk in that casino." Yamada feels genuinely bad hearing this, since he'd been badmouthing Ash to just moments ago, but even after Sass's explanation, no one except Yamada actually believes Ash is innocent. So in the end, on everyone's insistence, she's forced to leave town. The old man thanks Yamada and makes one more request: could he clear out the group of people sitting under the world tree, since they're selling off its leaves for profit. That's when Yamada realizes the townspeople themselves want to profit off the world tree's leaves. Everything he's done so far was to save that tree. But these people are already starting the exact same cycle that's destroying it. Give a beggar a golden bowl, and he'll still beg. Same story with this town. Sass's group starts to leave the town, but Near notices the world tree's leaves are now falling rapidly, and within minutes, the entire tree completely withers, its leaves all dropping. The old man's jaw drops. Right then, the world tree spirit appears before Sass, and it turns out to be Ash. In her eyes, Sass was the only one who ever really tried to understand her, so before leaving, she thanks him with a truly priceless gift, an unlimited supply of Sass's poison pills. Maybe now this poor man's death wish will finally come true. Their group then heads toward the next temple, and to save time, they end up cutting through a desert. Everyone's condition is completely wrecked except Sass, who's thrilled, stepping out and saying, "I wish I could just get buried and die in this scorching desert today." Near tells them this is actually his old home turf, his hometown. In fact, as they're talking about the place, some riders show up and say, "You're standing on our territory's border, you'll need to pay a toll to cross." Andy and Tama, already in a foul mood from the heat, start beating them up in fury. Sass, meanwhile, is basically about to turn into an omelet from this heat. Right then, the gang's leader, Toru, decides Sass looks like an easy target and moves in to kill him. Near thinks about fighting to protect Sass, but he's so terrified he can't even draw his sword. Toru sneers, "Kid, if you don't step aside, I'll pump your body so full of my scorpion venom you'll die writhing in agony." Right then, Sass walks up behind Toru and politely requests, "Excuse me, whatever you're about to do to him, could you do it to me instead? I'd really appreciate it." So Toru grants Sass's wish and injects his scorpion venom straight into him. He assumes that's the end of Sass, but instead, the poison already inside Sass's body proves far more potent than the scorpion venom, and even Toru's poison can't withstand it. Furious, Toru's about to attack Sass anyway, but right then they hear a wolf howling in the distance, and everyone in the group visibly panics. Toru's companion urges him to leave quickly. As they retreat, Toru still yells back that he'll return to avenge his scorpion. Near, embarrassed, apologizes to Sass for just standing there watching instead of fighting. It's fine, he'll learn how to use that sword eventually. For now, Andy tells Near, "If you really know this place, take us somewhere safe first." By evening, Near leads them to a small house, and some of the kids there recognize him right away. He apparently grew up in this very orphanage. The caretaker, an old woman, is thrilled to see Near and says, "You finally came back." All four of them go inside, where there's plenty of food waiting, quite surprising for the middle of this desolate desert. But apparently someone leaves food for the orphanage kids outside every single night. Suddenly, they hear the wolf's howl again, keeping everyone on high alert. This wolf is the desert's sole apex predator, capable of even devouring humans. That night, once everyone's asleep, Sass steps outside to watch this legendary wolf hunt for sand. Some noises outside wake Near up too, and he sees a shadow at the window, terrified. Despite his fear, he grabs his sword and steps outside, where he finds the very man who's been leaving food for them, equally terrified. Near asks him why he does this, and the man says, "It just makes me happy feeding these poor, innocent children." This man's name is Seto, and he sits with Near for a while, chatting. Once morning arrives, Seto hands Near a basket of fruit and prepares to leave. Near asks him to stay for breakfast, but he declines for now. He's already deeply happy just doing this much for the kids. Setu then takes Nier to some fruit trees, where they can take as much fruit as they can carry, and Nier quickly gathers a bunch when he returns to the orphanage. Tama and Auntie notice he seems unusually happy. What's going on with him? Right then, the old woman comes running to tell them that some bad men have kidnapped one of the young children. When they rush outside, they find it's Toru, back to get revenge for his scorpion. Nier, seeing them all again, freezes up in fear, and able to draw his sword. Setu quietly pulls him aside. Seeing Nier in this state stirs up some of his own memories, and he explains, something similar happened to me too, a while back. In that world, I had no power at all, and I could never help my friend when he needed me. That's why I don't want you to lose someone the way I did. And with that, Setu transforms into a wolf, meaning Setu is the very wolf that's had this entire region terrified. Sass stands nearby, watching everything, and immediately starts writing his next story about Setu. In wolf form, Setu starts fighting Toru and his men, but obviously, no one can go toe-to-toe with a beast this ferocious, so they immediately abandon the kidnapped child and try to flee. Setu, unwilling to let anyone escape, chases after them to kill until Nier summons the courage to draw his sword and stands directly in Setu's path. Nier tells him, "You're a good man, you saved those children, you should stop now." But at this point Setu is completely out of control, and instead turns his attack on Nier. Seeing this, Nier refuses to fight back at all and lowers his sword completely, and the moment he does, Setu somehow manages to regain control of himself. Setu then tells everyone his backstory, how he lost his parents in an accident long ago and lived his whole life alone. Plenty of people badmouthed him too. But one day a boy came into his life who often helped Setu out, and over time, the two became close friends. But it didn't last. Some people beat his friend badly, and Setu tried to save him but couldn't, because of his own legs. At this, Sass interjects, "No, it wasn't your legs. You couldn't save him because you didn't have the courage to." Nier gets angry hearing this. "How can you say that?" But for now, that's just the plain truth. Now, Sass's book about Setu starts glowing, and all its pages swirl around him. Sass says, "Sure, you've made some mistakes, but because of them, you've also done a lot of good. Like protecting this orphanage and feeding all these kids." Before leaving, the children all say goodbye to Setu, and he teleports back to his world. Setu teleports to the exact same spot where the truck first hit him, and finds his old friend right there, coming to help him up. Meanwhile, back at the Dark Lord's castle, a lady's being told by the bartender how one of the fallen angels, Kebara, has been killed by some people, and the other, the fallen angel of misery, Sengoku, is struggling in a fight against the dwarves in the desert, unable to win the war yet. And this lady listening to all this, none other than Sass's lover, Sachin. Meanwhile, in the dwarf kingdom, the fallen angel of misery, Sengoku, is fighting to seize the kingdom with his army. Isha and Wolf have also come to help defend it, though Wolf is busy drinking. Even in the middle of all this, Isha snaps at him, "At least stop drinking for once, you drunkard." Wolf then uses his magic to trap Sengoku's entire army inside a giant tornado, forcing them to retreat and withdraw. But Isha spots Sass right in the middle of that tornado, swinging around helplessly in the air. After the retreat, Dwarf King Doran blames the church and Pop for all this destruction, since it's their fault dangerous people like this ended up in this world. Wolf shrugs, "How were we supposed to know these guys would take the Dark Lord's place after beating him?" Right then, Auntie Tama and Nier show up too, and Isha asks Auntie if Sass is okay. Sass himself answers from behind, "Unfortunately, I survived, but my beloved coffin got destroyed." "Oh, don't worry about that, I'll get you a new coffin." Right then, Wolf walks up, and Mello spots his female counterpart nearby. An instant love at first sight for Mello's his brother. Sass thanks Wolf for trapping him in the tornado, since it's been a while since he had a proper near-death experience. Isha fills everyone in on the war between the dwarves and the fallen angel Sengoku, currently raging over the dwarf kingdom. Tama mentions she's already defeated a fallen angel named Kebara herself. But Wolf doesn't believe it, he was probably weak. "There's no way someone from Regalo could beat a fallen angel." "Sounds like you're taking us for fools. You don't know about Sass. He can send anyone back to their world with his power." Wolf says, "Yeah, I've heard of that, but I really don't think someone like Sass could beat a fallen angel." Meanwhile, Sengoku's returned to the castle, saying, "We had to abandon the war for today, but we'll continue tomorrow." The bartender cuts him off. "No, you're not going. Someone else will handle this now," and decides to send the fallen angel of greed instead. Honestly, based on what we've seen so far, I'm pretty convinced this bartender is actually the real leader of this whole crew, and the strongest of them all. Meanwhile, Sass spots Mellows' sad face and immediately understands this little guy's fallen in love. Alright, fine, I'll help push your love story along. The two of them head over to Wolf, who's got his own female Mellows with him, surrounded by a bunch of girls. Since we don't know Wolf's Mellows' actual name, we'll just call her female Mellows. Once Wolf leaves, Sass starts trailing him everywhere. Wolf eventually reaches a house and knocks. "It's me, come outside," but nobody answers. "Fine, I'll come back after the war's over." Sass figures Wolf must have come to see his lover and quietly slips away. The next day, Doran heads into battle again with his dwarf army, and this time, the dwarves are actually winning. Suddenly, Isha spots a dragon rapidly approaching them. Turns out, it's the Dark Lord's own dragon. Wolf's fully confident, since he's shot down plenty of dragons before. But just before he attacks, he spots the rider on the dragon's back, and it's not Sengoku. It's the fallen angel of greed. Wolf freezes completely in shock at the sight of her, unable to move. Isha tries to help, but standing up to the fallen angel of greed is nearly impossible, and here we learn the twist. Wolf used to be this fallen angel's master. So greed swoops in and takes Wolf away, forcing the war to be paused entirely. Watching greed carry him off, Isha suspects she's headed to the Ridden Temple. That night, Sass heads back to that same house, hoping to learn more about Wolf, but surprisingly, when the door opens, it's an old woman who steps out. Sass himself is stunned, completely unsure of what's going on. Meanwhile, the fallen angel of greed has brought Wolf to the Ridden Temple, where he calls her by the name Yuriko. Isha explains to everyone that Yuriko used to be one of Wolf's students, whom he trained personally. But at some point, for some reason, Wolf stopped training her, and that's when she developed a drinking problem. For now, though, the priority is saving Wolf. Isha asks Shidoran for help, but he can't do much either, since his soldiers are running low. Tama says, "Don't worry, we'll handle this together with Sass." Right then, Sass arrives, carrying that same old woman in his arms. Poor Andy practically burns with jealousy watching this. Turns out, Sass has brought this old woman here for a specific reason. A reason that'll become clear later. The next morning, their whole team gears up to rescue Wolf. Sass had earlier requested something from Doran and asks about it now. Doran says, "What you asked for is quite unusual, so it'll take a little more time to build." Right then, Tor shows up in front of them, hands folded, saying, "If it weren't for Boss Near, I'd have died a long time ago, and look, now I take care of the kids at that orphanage." Turns out, Tor is actually here to repay his debt to Near by helping them, and uses his skill to transform himself into a van, seating everyone inside. But just as Sass tries to climb in, Toru kicks him away. "Where do you think you're going? You killed my scorpion, no way you're riding in my van." And he speeds off with everyone else, leaving Sass behind. Tama tries to stop him and demands he go back for Sass, but he refuses. Meanwhile, the old woman tells Sass, "I'd like to come with you to meet Wolf too." Cut to another scene. The group finally reaches the Ridden Temple, where several priests lie wounded on the ground, meaning Yuriko must be right here. As they step inside the temple, they find Wolf tied up, with Yuriko seated nearby, introducing herself. "I'm Yuriko, another girl from another world, whom Wolf trained, but now I'm a fallen angel." She then summons several skeletons using her power. Tama, Near, and Toru start fighting them off, but the more they attack, the more skeletons keep appearing. Isha asks Yuriko what turned her into this. Yuriko explains her past. When she first arrived in this world, Wolf trained her to master her skills and defeat the Dark Lord. For a long time, everything between them was going well until a new girl, Hikari, got teleported into this world too. From that point on, Wolf gradually stopped paying attention to Yuriko and started training Hikari instead. Eventually, he even chose Hikari over her to fight the Demon Lord. Devastated and consumed by jealousy and rage, Yuriko used her skill to kill Hikari herself, and that's exactly how she became the fallen angel of greed, but before she can attack them again. Sass makes an absolutely hero-worthy entrance in his Ferrari, which he'd specifically asked Doran to build, with the old woman riding along with him. The moment Yuriko sees her, she's stunned, because that old woman is none other than Hikari. Sass says, "I've already written your little sister's story. Now, all that's left is your part." Everyone's shocked to learn these two are actually real sisters. And here we finally learn the truth. Yuriko always hated Hikari because it was Hikari's frailty that kept Yuriko from ever getting to go out and live like a normal girl. That's why, when Yuriko arrived in this world, she was thrilled, finally free to do whatever she wanted. But then Hikari showed up too, and once again, everything got taken away from her. Remembering all this, Yuriko, consumed by rage, moves to kill Hikari right then, but Sass steps between them. Look, I need to finish my novel. So tell me your story. But Yuriko doesn't appreciate Sass butting in and tries to attack him instead. Wolf jumps in to protect him and takes Yuriko's attack himself instead, which starts rapidly aging half his body. But Sass isn't backing down. He tells Wolf to stay back and walks straight up to Yuriko, who ends up devouring him too. Look, I'm a writer. If you want, you can share all your feelings with me. Finally, Yuriko relents and begins telling her story, taking us into her past. We learn that Hikari was often sick, and whenever their father wasn't home, it was Yuriko who had to take care of her. Yet despite everything, their father always favored Hikari, something that quietly ate away at Yuriko inside. She'd often see other girls heading off to school and wanted the same for herself. So one day, she secretly wore a school uniform and snuck out to spend some time outside. When she returned home, her father was furious with her and slapped her, since Hikari's condition had worsened badly during the time Yuriko was gone. Furious, Yuriko ran out of the house, and that's when the truck hit her, bringing her to this world. But even here, all she'd managed to do was hurt her sister all over again. Realizing this, she's overwhelmed with regret over what she did to her. No, you're not wrong, Sass tells her. Everything you did just for your own happiness. And Hikari hugs Yuriko close. Sass then reveals the real reason Hikari ended up in this world. After Yuriko left, Hikari grew deeply sad, feeling like she'd completely lost her will to live. That's exactly why Truck-kun hit her too and sent her here as well. Learning this, Yuriko finally realizes how wrong she'd been about her sister this whole time. Wolf, too, comes to understand his own mistake, because when Hikari first arrived in this world, Yuriko had actually been overjoyed to see her again. But once Hikari learned she was the one destined to defeat the Dark Lord, she chose to take that burden on herself instead of Yuriko, because for the first time, Hikari had a chance to actually be happy in this world, and she wanted her sister to finally live her own life freely. If Wolf had simply made the right call back then, none of this would have ever happened. With both their stories now written, Sass's new novel is complete, and just like every time before, the teleportation process begins. Yuriko's magic effects fade away too, healing Hikari, Wolf, and everyone else, and with that, the two sisters return together to their own world.